And I think I could have easily went out and pursued another job at the time. But I wanted to work hard and to create something for me and my family.
Well, welcome to the podcast today. We have a special guest, Justin Kershaw, former football player for Michigan State University, went to work for Stryker. He's an entrepreneur. He started multiple businesses. He's a family man. I actually met Justin in church and ran into you at CrossFit.
Yeah.
And I've seen you on social media. Justin, you're an entrepreneur. You're getting after it. You're a leader. Great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I'm happy to be connected with you and so glad we ran into each other. And so glad you're getting swole in the CrossFit gym too, man.
I need to get back into it. I've had a little bit of a cold. Been traveling for work with my full-time job at J&J. We've been out in Dallas and got back. But you're a great athlete. You're a family man. How many kids do you have?
5 kids.
5 kids. That's awesome. I'm a little behind you. I'm trying to. My third one is on the way and trying to catch up with you. But you played football at Michigan State. Before you got on the air, we were talking a little bit about big contract Kirk Cousins, your former teammate, signed, and he's a good family man. But tell us a little bit about your journey as a football player. You were a standout football player, and you transitioned into the corporate world, into medical sales. Tell us back in those days how you got into medical sales.
Yeah, so I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. My dad was a police officer. He's a football player at Florida State, played for Coach Bowden. He was an impressive businessman. He owned pizza restaurants, and he had 6 kids himself.
Really?
I really admire my dad.
What pizza did he own?
It was called Pacino's Pizza.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it was a family business. It was all my grandma's recipes, and being called Pacino's, you think it would be a bunch of Italians that owned it, but just a bunch of black dudes with my grandma's recipes. So, yeah, it was a really cool experience. But I was introduced to football through 2 things. Number one, my older brother Daryl, he played for the Westland Cougars. I remember seeing the helmets and the shoulder pads, and I fell in love with that. And when I saw Joe Montana in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform, it was it. And I learned about Derek Thomas and the different formations and field goals and punts and interceptions. And I was hooked. I really was hooked. The whole system of football. And my dad loved it because he was a football player. Mm-hmm. So that's how me and my dad connected. He taught me about hard work, dedication, lifting weights, running. And we had a goal in mind, which was I could get my entire college paid for and I could potentially make it to the NFL.
Yeah.
So signed with Michigan State.
What made you decide Michigan State? Because I'm new to Columbus. Everything's Buckeye culture here. And, it's unique. Tell us a little bit of that story. What made you decide Michigan State?
Yeah, great question. So I did grow up in Columbus, which is Buckeye country. And it was really divine intervention because I grew up a football fan. My dad played at Florida State. Growing up in Columbus, I love football. But if you're from Columbus, you want to naturally go to Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Took all my visits. Ohio State recruited me, but they never offered me a scholarship, and I was waiting for it. And at the time, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, she got a full ride to long jump to Michigan State.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So she's an incredible athlete.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, way better athlete than me. And she's a nurse at Children's Hospital right now. Shout out to Children's, Nationwide Children's.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and she got a full ride. And at the time, I looked at all my visits, saw that Coach Smith at the time had just won Big Ten Coach of the Year. They're in the Big Ten. They weren't that far away. And I looked at all my offers, and I decided Michigan State. And it was a cherry on top that my girlfriend was getting to go there. So that's why I chose.
Wow, that is awesome. And when did you two get married?
So we got married 2016.
Okay.
In 2016, yeah. So we started dating when I was in high school. I was 16 years old because I had to wait till she was 16. We dated, had a baby when we were 23, and we broke up for a number of years. And divine intervention would have it that we got back together. And I love her. She's my best friend, and she's a huge blessing in my life.
Wow, that's a phenomenal story. And now you're out of college, and what was that like? How did you What made you decide? At one point, you worked for Stryker, right?
Yeah, so right after school, I signed with the Panthers. Thought I was going to have this illustrious career. Got cut by the Panthers, and a good friend of mine, John Goss, he's a kicker from Michigan State. He had a territory for Stryker in Florida, and I called him and told him I was looking for a job, and he said, ironically, an associate position at Stryker had just opened up in Columbus. For those of you who don't know, there's usually a main sales rep, and then they have a helper, if you will, or somebody to support their business. It's an associate.
Yeah.
So I became an associate for Stryker in 2009, right after college.
And for those watching our show, an associate is sometimes a great pathway to enter into the industry, and you prove yourself in that, and you get that full line rep position after that. And so you're working for Stryker, but you also have this mindset of an entrepreneur. And tell us, and then also the business opportunities. Where did you go after that, after Stryker?
Yeah, so worked for Stryker, did that for 6 months. We had our daughter, and I really appreciated the job, but I was looking for more opportunities, and I wanted to stay in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied for a job at 3M. So 3M is a huge company, and they do have a medical division, but I worked in the industrial business side, selling abrasives, which is fancy sandpaper. That company wanted to relocate me to Tulsa. I wasn't going to go to Tulsa. So I really had to do some soul searching, Dave.
Yes.
And I thought I was going to either get back into coaching. So I called Coach Antonio and said I wanted to be a coach. And I looked at it, and as you know, coaches work a lot. Right. And I had a young baby at the time, and I had to ask myself the question, do I want to be a good coach or be a good dad? And so I saw the business model for being a distributor and having my own entity and working with smaller companies to support doctors. And for those of you that don't know, if you don't mind me sharing, David, but a distributor is basically a middleman or a sales force that manufacturers have in order to sell to hospitals and doctors. The benefit that the manufacturer has is they don't have to pay insurance. They pay you as a 1099. They don't have to pay all the employment taxes. And the benefit that we have is we have the autonomy to kind of sell what we want to sell. The territories are drawn out in a different way. So it's very beneficial to people that want to be in this field, but also have an entrepreneurial spirit.
So you started your own distributorship, right? Because I know there's some reps who can go work for another distributorship, right? But is that correct? Am I hearing that correctly?
Correctly, yeah. I started my own distributorship, and I'm telling you, it was really divine intervention. And anybody that's looking to change careers or get into this, make sure you pray a lot. I hope you don't mind me saying that.
Yeah,
because it was pure divine intervention. The Lord guided my steps in how to see that business model and then how to maintain customers. But yeah, I started my own distributorship in 2012. Some other terms you'll hear is, Justin is the principal or the main distributor. And we started it. Vinia Medical is the name of our company.
Wow. There's others out there who are thinking about, they maybe work for a large medical device company. They're thinking about, being their own business, starting their own business. There's pros and cons probably to both. There's challenges. What do you think would be for someone wanting to make that jump in entrepreneurship to start their own distributorship? What would be the key questions that one would really want to investigate and look at before they leave their job at one of the big device companies?
That's a really great question. That's a great question. I would first say count the cost, because it's really nice having a check coming in, having benefits, and a lot of these companies, like the Arthrexes of the world or Stryker or Medtronic, they're big establishments. So you can have business, have immediate income, but also you only get to live once. Mm-hmm. And I think I could have easily went out and pursued another job at the time, but I wanted to work hard and to create something for me and my family. My brother ended up working with me for the past 12 years. So I've been able to work alongside my brother. I've been able to create jobs for the people, and I've been able to learn how to actually run a business. Mm-hmm. And so the good part about being a distributor is a lot of the inventory is consigned. So you don't have to come out out of pocket for a lot of the money or inventory. So I would just say count the cost, but then also realize you only live once. Mm-hmm. And it's great to take a risk. What happened if Jeff Bezos wouldn't take the risk for Amazon, or
Right.
Steve Jobs wouldn't have made the computer? We might not be talking right now. So you got to take the risk, but also count the cost and measure your level of the amount of risk you're willing to take.
What do you think, looking back at those years, what was one of the biggest surprises that when you got into it, you didn't anticipate this, it could be good or bad, but once you got into leading your own company, you're like, wow, this has changed my perspective.
Yeah, man, that is a great question. That is a great question, David. Sorry, I want to make sure I answer this right.
That's
I
all
would
right.
say, I would say that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't.
Hmm.
I would go to doctors' offices, being willing to learn, being prepared to present myself and to present my material, but not really knowing what I was doing as far as anatomy or spine. I just went out and I did it, and it worked. It worked.
Wow.
That's number one. So I wouldn't get caught up in the details. I would just say, just do it.
Get going, be a doer is what you're saying. Don't
Yeah,
wait for all the perfect knowledge. Don't wait for all the
absolutely.
perfect answers. Get going.
Yeah, get going, go after it, just do it. Don't be afraid of failure. Make the mistakes. There's plenty of times I look dumb, but I learned from it. So I would say just do it. And number two is I don't think in the society we live in now, there is no substitute for being formal or or in excellence, because we live in a society now where sweatpants can be the norm, where people are always on their phone. It's laughed at if you say yes sir or no sir. But formality doesn't talk about who you are. It speaks of what you think about the other person. And I think because I was raised with saying yes or no sir, with making sure I look nice or presentable, that a lot of the doctors I worked with respected that.
Wow.
And
Did you learn that from your father? Was he a big impact on your life? How did you learn that the manners? Yes, sir. No, was it from coaches? Who was the biggest influences? Uh,
absolutely, my dad, 100%. My dad and my grandmother. That's how we were raised, and I can remember even going to parent-teacher conferences and people saying, "Justin, he might be a class clown, but he's so polite, and he always says yes or no, sir,
yes.
yes, ma'am, no, ma'am." And I was very shocked at why they would say this. I thought that's how we were supposed to act, but that's how we were raised, and it's helped me improve. And even some of the doctors now, for example, I know of a surgeon who went to Yale, and now he does entrance interviews with potential candidates to get to this prestigious Ivy League school.
Uh-huh.
Then he says he notes whether the kids like come in a shirt and tie, or whether they come in sweatpants, or if they're polite or respectful, because that stuff matters. Because, like I said earlier, it doesn't talk about who we are as people, but the opportunity or the person that you're with. It's a sign of respect. And so I would never call a doctor doc. I would never want to be informal. And then I would say the third thing is building relationships.
Hmm.
Relationships. If you, what kills me is a lot of you have to look at sales numbers, I guess. It's
Mhm.
important. But I think sales numbers are an exact reflection of how much value you added to the customer. The
Right.
more value that you add is a reflection of the sale numbers. And we're not just trying to sell. A pedicle screw is a pedicle screw in the world of spine. Everything's commoditized. But if you go out and you figure out what really gets this surgeon, is it, he likes for you to measure what he's going to use on the board every day, or he appreciates somebody like tying him up before he scrubs in, whatever it may be, whatever that surgeon finds important that you can do better than everyone else. That is adding value, and that's what drives us as our distributorship.
Yes, I think those are good tips. I think, when someone's in college, when I look back, there's a natural community. There's a dorm. I was in a house with teammates. There was
Yeah.
structure in place. And then when we
Mhm.
get out to the work world and in sales, it's up to us to take initiative. And
Mm.
it may be that we're not seeing our manager every single day. It's up for us to go into difficult situations and take initiative. What is there any other advice you would give to that guy, to that girl who was maybe very relational in college, did well, got good grades, and maybe student athlete as well, and they're wanting to transition into this, but now they're working from home and they have to go out. Any disciplines? You're a man of discipline. I've seen you in the CrossFit gym. I've seen you throwing that weight around. What are some structures or some habits that you would encourage that person to take a hold and to implement early?
Yeah, I would say number one is wake up early. I think there's really precious time in the morning, not only spiritually, but biologically, scientifically, to really get yourself up in the morning. I think your body is your business card in a lot of ways, and the way you present yourself, not just how your physique looks, but I think exercise helps your skin glow. It helps your smile. It helps put you in a better mood. So don't lose those disciplines, because I've lost them before, and it was detrimental to my health. And another thing is, I think there should be time for quiet time, for prayer in our case, but also just quiet time to be confident and to walk into a sales call or to run into a doctor knowing that you do not have to dominate the conversation and you do not have to impress them with words or your vocabulary, but you can just be who you are.
Yes.
I've been in so many situations where it's me and reps, and I won't use the term that I want to use, but it's this posturing of who can one up a story, who can make the surgeon laugh, who can say something impressive. Where if you're just confident in yourself, your knowledge, and your product and what you want to present, that's all you have to worry about.
Wow.
And I'll tell you this: I don't know if you knew this, Dave, but I just took a job with Arthrex.
Okay. I did not know that. I knew that you were considering it, but tell us about that.
Yeah, so Arthrex, it's a great company. I think it's the biggest privately held company in the United States. The owner went to Michigan State, go green, won the Thomas Edison Award. He's obsessed with helping surgeons. That's all he's obsessed about. Very impressive man. And they're getting into the endoscopy side on the spine side. And I just see it as a tremendous opportunity for me to add value to surgeons and to leverage the relationships I have now. And it's so funny, from 15 years ago to now, walking and talking to a doctor where I don't feel the need to impress them or make them laugh. My goal is to bring value to them by helping them help their patients and then being the person that I am. And that starts in the morning when I wake up and developing my skills and praying and getting quiet, being confident in who I am, and then who God is.
Wow, I love that. I knew you were wrestling with the decision. I didn't know if it was official, but congrats. I know
Thanks, man.
Arthrex is fortunate and blessed to have you, and especially as a Michigan State alum, I know that is a big win for them to have you, and congrats to you as well. I know you will succeed there. How big is your territory?
Columbus, Dayton, in the eastern part of Ohio.
Okay, very cool. That's great.
Yeah.
You've also done some other businesses. Can you tell? CrossFit. I noticed some of your health bars.
Yeah.
You might mention a little bit about that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I really have a firm belief that medical companies and that food companies have a responsibility to help people flourish and help communities flourish. And in 2020, me and my wife, we noticed two things. Number one is that people in our community, they were dying prematurely. In some pockets of Columbus, the average life expectancy was 59 years old. If you compare that to blue zones where people live far past the typical life expectancy, it's like 103. And then also the other thing we noticed is we had some health ailments or struggles because of following fashionable diets, these low carb diets like keto and paleo. And so we wanted to do something about it. I saw RX Bar was big in the CrossFit community, tried it, didn't like the product. And I told my wife I'm going to create the best tasting, healthiest nutrition bar on the planet and try to help people. And so that's why we started So Strong Food. Started 3 years ago. We're in 10 grocery stores now. And on top of that, we have 5 kids too. So I've got all the time in the world to start a business.
That is awesome. Well, congrats, and just exciting that you're getting in more grocery stores and just expanding that product as well with your wife. And it's fun that you can do it together. And what Maybe you could just kind of shift a little bit. You've mentioned your spiritual life. You've mentioned waking up early, having a quiet time, and balancing that. You're a father of 5 kids. A lot of us as dads, myself, I got married a little bit later in life, and I became a stepdad, and then I had a baby. Now I have another on the way.
Awesome.
So we got 3. Next baby will be here in 2.5 months. What are some we talk a lot about work, work, work. Do you have any advice of how we can become better fathers? Those of us in the industry, we want to be successful, but how to manage that we can also be great dads at home as well. Any tips?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say this. I heard a riddle a couple of years ago. It was there's 3 fish, two two young fish and an old fish. The old fish comes up to the 2 young fish and he says, "Hey boys, how's the water?" And they're like, "What's water?" And what really struck me is we don't realize the crap that we're swimming around in. And a lot of the stuff we're swimming around is pressure and programming of what we're told to do, meaning that we're supposed to make all the money we can and collect money and be gone all the time, to be on our phones, to not be present, to love entertainment. And I think that's the total opposite. I do believe that men should work and work very, very hard. And ideally, I think kids should see their dad growing their own businesses personally.
Yeah.
That's number one. Because it says like we're family, we're mission based. This is what we're doing to create value. That's number one. And it's okay to have another job. And I would say number 2 is being present in the moment and knowing that a father these kids are arrows in our hands and they're only there for a little bit of time. And how can we intentionally look at these kids prayerfully and see, man, how am I going to shoot them out into this world to make a difference? And we can't do that if we're on the phone all the time. We can't do that if our brains and hearts are corrupted with what the world has to offer. And so that's what I would say. And also, too, the crap we're swimming around in, I think we should work very, very hard. And we should be tired at the end of the day from parenting and working. But I just got back from Africa with my 14-year-old on a mission trip.
Oh, wow.
And when I tell you that there's more to life than stressing about buying Starbucks or worrying about our 401ks, or even our kids' GPAs. It's about relationships, connecting, and making a difference now. And it's good to slow down and to be quiet. But I'm apprehensive to say that because I don't think most people work hard.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's like, the Joel Pentons of the world. Joel's a good friend.
Oh yeah.
Or the Dave Starretts, or I would say myself, because of my dad, is that you have to work really, really hard, and you should have people tell you need to rest, and then you should take that advice and say, you know what, I need to slow down. And I would say, dads, have your kids work with you. I think it's good to sit down and watch other people live their lives on a box on your wall some of the time. But a lot of times, like, let's get out and work. Like, part of the reason I started another business so my kids could learn how to work.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, so
I like that. And you went on a mission trip. You said, where did you go in Africa?
We went to Kenya. Yep.
Kenya.
Yeah,
Excellent.
so we were in flew into Nairobi, then we went to Kisumu, which is the 3rd biggest city in the country, and we supported the surgeons as they did pro bono surgeries.
I love that. I've been to Uganda.
Incredible.
Yeah, I love it. I've been to Uganda. I've been to Ivory Coast on mission trips, and just love such a huge continent. One of my teammates from Liberty University was from Kenya, and it's just a great, great continent. What a great opportunity to help those in need, and to do it with your daughter as well. So that's awesome. I love it.
It was a blessing in my life, man. It's a beautiful continent. Everybody thought I was white there, which is crazy. And it was just it was awesome. Ivory Coast, I'd like to hear more about that one day. It's awesome.
Yes. It was one of my first mission trips when I was in college, and we did water purification, and it was a yeah, actually an evangelistic trip as well. I remember preaching in a church, and as a reward, they gave me a chicken. I didn't know what to do with it, but we went to a variety of places, but we also went to some of the poor communities as well, and that was life changing to see as well. Those who are less fortunate, and to be able to proclaim the good news of the gospel to
Amen,
them.
bro.
So it's good. Justin, you're always learning, you're always growing. Maybe one, is there any podcast or book that you've read? It could be about anything that you've enjoyed learning from in the last year.
Yep. It's a book called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek.
Okay.
It's probably the most, every CEO in America should read it. Every sales rep, every business guy. And the reason I like it is it talks about how the most successful companies in the world, they're not playing a finite game where there is a winner at this, like this is how you win. It's an infinite game means we're never going to win the game. Our mission is to push the ball forward for the next generation. And there's a story, if you don't mind me sharing it, from the book. But Simon Sinek, he has a book called Know Your Why. Start with why, and Leaders Eat Last. And in this book, he says, he tells a story about in 2006, he was a keynote speaker at Microsoft and at Apple. And at Microsoft, they were obsessed with market share. They were obsessed with beating Apple. And they had a new product called the Zune, which was an MP3 player that was supposed to beat the iPod. You remember the iPod?
Yes.
And so they even had a mock funeral for the iPod. They gave him the Zune as a gift. He tried and he said, wow, this is incredible. It's better than the iPod. So a couple weeks later, he went to Apple. He said they were obsessed with helping teachers help more students efficiently. That's what they were obsessed with, compared to Microsoft, who was obsessed with market share and obsessed with beating Apple. He showed the Zune to the Apple CEO and said, hey, you better be careful. This is better than the iPod. The guy looked at it for 2 seconds, said, yeah, it probably is better than the iPod, and put it down on the table. And Simon was shocked, like, he's not concerned about this. 3 weeks later, they launched the iPhone, which was a totally different category, created a totally different category, and it basically eliminated the MP3 category. And his whole point was they were only concerned about their shareholders and gaining market share, where Apple was concerned about helping more teachers, help more students. And it shows you in medical device and whatever it is you're doing, how can we keep the just cause, the infinite game in front of our mind? And that is to help people and to create culture and to nurture people. And so that's why I love that book.
Powerful. I need to read it. I've enjoyed listening to him before, and I need to get this book.
Incredible book.
That's great. I'm going to get it. I'm going to add it. Justin, I've enjoyed it. We've learned so much, and I just appreciate you jumping on the podcast.
Of course, brother. Thanks for having me, man. Anytime.
All right. You take care.
See you, brother.